Meenakshi madam, session has not started.
No, madam told let some more people join.
Okay, okay.
So can we start, Arinakshi ma'am?
Sure, ma'am. I think we can start the session.
Okay. Okay, students. So let me first brief you that what are we going to do. Okay, I was trying to download one exercise for you, so that on cybersecurity, so that at least there should be some kind of. Just give me a few seconds. I'm just on the process of downloading exercise file. One minute. Just a minute. Let me just download one file and then I will start, because this file is something which I want to pass on to you all, so that we can actually learn something after this, just not a session where you listen and you forget. a very important one, and my friend has given me this. So let me take out some of the files. Anyway, I'm going to send that file to you. Okay, got it. Okay. So students, what I'm going to do is I will show you later also those files which I'm going to send you, especially for those people who wish to, pursue their career in the cyber security. So good evening to one and all present over here. And let me start my session. So this particular session, as I told in the last session, will be the second session on the cyber security. And then you can tell me that what session you want next. And I can just go ahead and prepare some content for this, because you have to give me 1 week time. If I already have a content and a material for it, because my main objective is to, after every session, to give you some either a learning material or a kind of a exercise, so that you learn after you attend this particular session. Okay, so just give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to share a slide with you. Okay, so let me start. Okay, so let me start, students. So this particular thing, we are going to learn a little bit about certain terminologies, certain technologies. Last class, sorry, I focused mostly on the type of threats, the cybersecurity digital landscape, that what are the common threats which are there. Today, we will also look from the organization point of view, that which are the biggest attack, which are very, very popular. There are a lot of attack, but then which were the most popular thing. We will also, in the end, if the time permit, I have opened one particular small tutorial where we will go through certain government regulation, because as a cybersecurity professional, we should always know what are the government rules and regulation which can be universal, related to the the anything on the internet. So before I start, I'm going to I will take you to this website. So we are going to talk about that first, and then once I complete it, I will take you to the site and show that how important it is for the cybersecurity professional, even any IT professional, to go through certain sites which are must. They should know about these sites, and they should go, because these are like crowdsourcing sites where people like me, you, or many people who are expert, or the media journals, or anybody who has information, they put it related to a particular kind of field. So this is a site. So what happens every day, we see a lot of news and report about major companies getting breached, their data is getting hacked, a lot of things happen. So if we are a cybersecurity professionals, we want to know that from where do we get these information? How do we make ourselves aware of what is happening? What are the new kinds of threat organizations are facing? So we have a very trusted organization which is called OWASP. Okay. I will tell those people who are aiming to become cybersecurity professional, even if you're not aiming, please make a note of this, because most of the time, when you go for an interview, they expect you to know these kinds of things. So each cybersecurity professionals have a knowledge about this particular site called, I'm going to show you this. I've kept it open in one of the browser. OWASP. OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Projects. And for decade, there is a group of people, or it's a community website, where a group of cybersecurity professionals, they share resources. The conferences which happens, you people should attend those conferences on AI or cloud computing, IoT, or cyber security or web development. And the tool to educate, there are a lot of tools also, latest tool also, which are there, which educate you and inform the cybersecurity or technology professionals about security best practices. Every few years, what they do is they publish a list of top 10 most common application security vulnerability. And these are called OWASP, top 10. Okay. So they just released a new version. So we are going to review that in this particular session. I will take you to that particular site after I complete this information. And according to this site, they list which are the top 10 which is there. So the latest one which is available here is 2021 version of OWS top 10 cybersecurity threat. You can go to this website, owasp.org. So it's a community, it's a social service for helping and informing the cybersecurity professional, making them aware of what are the latest threats, and also making them aware of certain examples and many things like that. Okay. So let me first take you. I'm not going to discuss the top 10. I will take you to the website and show you once I tell you about certain concept which I have taken it from that site and covered it. So I have taken the top 3. The first scenario is the broken access control. And this is the first top 10 in 2021. And broken access control says that this is an exposure occur when any confidential information is viewed by unauthorized access or unauthorized user. That means a person who doesn't have a permission to access that data. So let us break it down in order to talk about the broken access control. First, we should define what is access control. So access control means making sure, I'm talking about organization. This entire session is focused from the organization point of view. So this means that in a company or in an organization, any person who has access to what they are supposed to have access to, means they should be authorized person who should have an access, right person for having access, making sure that people who don't have access, those who are not supposed to have access, they should not have. This is a work of the IT professionals who have IT control to do that. So through networking, through various technology, access that, they provide that kind of access. So broken access control is exactly the opposite of access control. That means when you are providing an IT professional in a company, there will be students lot and load of data which are there. And again, the data is categorized into sensitive data, more sensitive data. And then there are certain people who are authorized to access certain data. Then access also happen in the terms of the right to edit, the right to modify the data, the right to delete the data, or right to view the data. Most of the time, most of the people who are non-managerial category will have right to view the data. Like for example, bank call centers. When you call a call center, they take your detail and they see the detail. They have a right to view the data because they have access to the data. Again, they have been access to the data with a view. That means they have a right to view, but they cannot alter the data, they can't edit the data, they can't delete or do anything with the data. So suppose you call a call center of the bank and say that I want to change my ID, or I want to change my email ID or something like that. Some of them he will may have a access. He may transfer the call to somebody who may have a access to edit certain types of data, like for example email ID and all. But if it is a very big, like for example phone number, which is very sensitive, it is connected to your Aadhaar card and everything is connected to your phone, then in that case they may not have access to change. So they will have to tell you to go to the bank and do it. In the bank also, when you go personally and physically visit, there will be some people who will have right to view the data. Some people will have not access to. For example, if you go to the Department of Home Loan and you ask them to go for FD or something else, they may not have the access to FD. So you have different people in the organization given different kinds of access. So that's called controlling of the access, and that's done at the IT level. So the IT people, the IT administrative people will give the access to the data, and also they decide that they also understand that what kind of confidentiality, integrity, which is also very important principle of the data security, and availability of the data to the right person is available or not. So the person with unintended access, if they are able to read, write, the data, edit the data, your private data, that means somebody who is outside the organization, who are not supposed to see the organizational data, who are not supposed to edit or delete, they are the people who are getting access. That is called a broken access control. So let's explore a couple of examples. The first scenario is when a sensitive information, and I'm going to give you cases that how the big cases has happened in the organization about this. So the first scenario is when a sensitive information, which is very, very sensitive to the company. A sensitive information can be a financial transaction information in e-commerce sites. It can be a information about the customer's database. That is also very sensitive information. So the sensitive information is exposed to an unauthorized person, right? The software is built to assume that different people are going to use it. You know that you are giving different access to the same data, but there is one person who's not authorized to use it. He get an access to that. And how it gets, because there is a software, as I told you, the IT professional use to provide access. So they will just go define the user, give them the credential to access that. In that credential, they may have access to certain type of data. They may not have access to certain kind of data. Let me tell you, when I was working in ITC Infotech, at that time, one incident happened. I'm just giving you this incident to make you understand that how control happens, access control happened. And this is, I'm talking about some 15 years back, when the technology, all those kinds of things are very, very at a very different level. So I have gone for a long, no, one of my friend actually has gone for a long leave. I was in HR at that time. And she came back, and we had a, very big campus in Manaswadi. Now the new office is made, but I used to work in the old campus, which used to look like a factory. And factory was actually converted into office. So the offices, all departments were very far off because the office was very huge. At that time, one of my friend who came after a long time forgot her credentials. Now she has to log in and send a very important mail to her boss. And it was a time when IT professionals, IT department was very far off, and she forgot her password. And she has to go to the IT department personally, physically fill a form. At that time, that was a procedure. And she has to get the password changed from there and then access her. She was not able to access. So what she did, now she can start the system with that credential. What she did, she asked for my user and ID and password. Now we have a very strict IT rules. Every company had that you should not share your credentials with any of your colleagues. Why? I will come to that. So what happened? I gave my credential thinking that, okay, she's my colleague. I trusted her and I gave her. Thinking she said that she's going to go after some time and get it changed. So she logged in with my credential. I also logged in with the same credential. Now, with my credential, I had a different right to access different kind of data. She had a different right to access different kind of data. Maybe the right what I had to access certain data or may edit data, she might not. So what has happened when she was doing, the IT professionals people will know about it. They found that there were two people using the same credential and they are accessing. So there is that these two people have different kind of access control or different type of access to the data. And those two are using the same credential. So which is actually very bad. So these IT professionals actually informed our boss. The boss came, and he asked us that, are you people, they identify the system and they tell. So we were actually called, we were given also a verbal warning because that was the first thing. Why I told you the story is to, or this incident is to note that in the company, there are certain IT rules and regulations, do's and don'ts to be followed by IT and non-IT professionals. One of the very important is the access control, the credential that you should not share, you should keep on changing it. This is because of this thing that if in case, if I had certain access to certain confidential data, which my friend doesn't have, maybe she could misuse it. And because it is done from my access, so I will be blamed for that. So this is the scenario. So what happens when unauthorized, the software basically give a permission to each user to do that. So the software, what does it? Each users will have a permission that are specific to their user role. So if a manager is there, that manager will have a access to certain data which the subordinates won't have. So typical role might include an anonymous user, a visitor. These are the roles which you can define in the software, where you can give a define. For example, administrator role, right? I'm a HOD, so I will have a administrative role. And as an administrative role, what I can do is I can modify the student attendance. Whereas at a faculty level, they don't have access. They can view, they can enter the data and they can view, they can't modify the data. So those kinds of roles are defined in the sometime in the ERP also. So every employee is defined the role with that particular software. It can be an anonymous user also, for example, a visitor who's coming and he need an access. So he will not have access to the data, but certain access to enter certain kind of input. An employee, a content contributor, a person like a database administrator who's supposed to configure certain kind of a setting. They may be there, as I said, administrator or a developer. So if you are a developer, if you have administrator, all this. So what happens? The broken access control occurs when a user is able to act beyond the permission of their role. For example, an employee is able to access and become an administrator. For example, like if you are a student, your teacher has a authorization to take your attendance with certain credential, and she gives you that access, or you take the access from her and you take her role as a teacher. As a student, you taking the role of the teacher. So that is called the broken access control within the organization, I'm telling you. Okay. So this might also happen if a web application accidentally share information with the user who are not supposed to have it. For example, if I give you from personal life, if you have a social media account which is private, the only people that are supposed to see are your friends or a family which you have approved. But if someone else goes to your profile and can see all your photos, all what you are not supposed to share it with the public, that is called broken access control. Somebody get access to your account and he can modify, he can put any post on your behalf and all those. So that is something which you have not provided, but he has got it somewhere. So it is also a kind of like someone in the human resource department. Sometimes these incidents happens a lot in the organization. So sometimes what happens, like in HR department, they have to print out certain document like warning letter, promotional letter, demotion letters, and they have to take it from the printer. The printer is a common resource which is shared by all the employees. So, or it can be a performance appraisal or evaluation, and they sometimes give a print command and it comes and they don't immediately go and pick it up. It is left in the printer for some time. So what happens, leaving it in the plain view of anybody who comes there and sharing the same printer can see that confidential information. Same just example is like that. So the key takeaway here is to make sure that you are not unintentionally leaving any private data physically or in an open access, like you don't give your, like I gave you my example of giving your credential to somebody. Okay. So that is unintentionally you're doing, but if it is coming to an access of somebody, they may misuse it. So this is one thing which I wanted to tell you. And then the second scenario also, I can tell you that many time the broken access control happens when you have like physically or you are sharing something or not. So this example, sometime you may feel, whatever example now I've given, this you may feel that okay, this is very common thing. Sometimes it happens, but this is according to OWASP is the top most vulnerability which an organization is facing nowadays. Getting access to the confidential by the unauthorized access or insider's job. Now, unintentionally, an employee may have given access to an unauthorized person, which may cause a lot of damage to that. Okay. So this is one thing which I wanted to tell you. The second important item in 2021 OWASP top 10 is cryptographic failure. So OWASP said that the first thing is to determine the protection need of data in transit and at rest. Okay. So what is a protection you are giving to the data which is server to somebody else, which is in transit, or if it is resting in your storage. Okay. So what are the things you do? Normally, what kind of thing you do? Password. It can be a credit card number. It can be a health record. It can be a personal information. It can be a business secrets. These are certain kinds of sensitive data which require protection. So this vulnerability category, when you assign, which will has two parts. The first, recommend that the folk who build web application think about the data that is being collected, stored, and used. And that data, he need to have certain ways to categorize it as sensitive, restricted, or regulated, or maybe private data. Or because if you're able to categorize those as a protected data, then or maybe sometime you can say it is less sensitive data. Maybe if it is fallen into the hand of somebody, it may not cause that harm which a sensitive data can do. So one important lever that we have to protect data is to encrypt it. So what people normally do, even your WhatsApp information or messages are end-to-end encryption. So today encryption is becoming a very common thing. So the second thing part, what I recommend here is that once a decision has been made to encrypt certain kind of data. Now what happens normally in some organization, only certain data are considered sensitive and it has been encrypted. Whereas the other data are not considered. Like for example, and that is one of the major thing what happened with Sony Entertainment Limited. So certain data like employee personal detail, they feel that, okay, this data is this is not so sensitive. But customer detail data is very sensitive because it should not fall into the hand of competitors. So they don't categorize those data as sensitive. And that means only the data which is very sensitive, you need to encrypt it. So you have to follow that what are the kind of encryption which is effective. So encryption involves many different steps. Okay. And these steps, sometime what happens, sometime implementation of that particular steps, you do mistakes. So in our digital and our physical lives alike, we want to protect the most valuable thing in the physical life. What do? In our house, we put cameras, or in offices, we put cameras to physically monitor things. Like, for example, if I give my example, how do I protect my own kids? And so if my kids are very small, so I'll make sure that when they are riding in the car, when they are sitting with us in the car, the small kids, they sit in a protective car seats. They should wear the belt. And when I'm doing some kind of online banking transaction, I'm very careful because I keep on hearing about a lot of things. So I will make sure that online banking passwords is very valuable. So I make sure that I make it little tough. I keep on changing, even though the bank asks you to do that. So similarly, the web app that allow me to bank online is also encrypting my password. They are also providing. They also tell you that make a strong password, which is not very easy to guess, because normally what happens is sometimes the hacking happens with a very simple thing. Like, for example, my son, I don't know how he finds out my husband and my mobile phone, password. And he knows, because he knows our psychology. And he knows that what kind of, he will try certain things and ultimately he'll be able to break the password. So that is one psychological treatment, which I said. So once the decision has been made to protect something in your organization, okay. So what you can do is, you can, when you take a decision that which are the particular sensitive data. So if you don't, sometimes what happens, some companies don't want to store sensitive data in the first place. Why? Because they feel they don't have a capability to secure and provide security to that data. So they use this cloud computing platform like AWS and all, and they buy the security package also with them. So what happens, the data which they are keeping in the somebody else server or the cloud computing server is provided security by a very well equipped IT company, which provide a very well. So they can always blame that company if something happens. So this is what in the first place some company are doing that practice. And suppose if your web app you have developed which needs a process to payment, okay. So consider a very strong payment gateway like PayPal, which can handle the payment data on your behalf, and which can also do it in a very secure way, because they have that technology to secure the financial transaction in transit or in rest. Okay. So if you don't store a sensitive data, then you don't have to worry about it to protect it. Secondly, if you are storing a sensitive data, then what you should do? Suppose you say, no, I want to store it with me. I don't want to give it to the third party. So then in that case, encrypt it both at rest or also when it is in transit. The third is, if you are encrypting data, use known strong cryptographic algorithm. For example, MD5, okay, is a weak algorithm and should not be used. While AES is a very strong algorithm. All these things I think you will be learning in your offline classes. So which can be used. So the full text for this vulnerability category of ASP top 10 include also, when I will be showing that website, they also tell you, please go through that website. I will give you the link of that site. You will find the techniques also, how to deal with that. So WSP also has a several chart sheet that covers various aspects, okay, various aspect of cryptographic failure. So here you have two things which I told you, that whether you want to keep the data with you or do you want to save it in somebody else where they provide a better security. Like for example, jewelries. When we have jewelries, gold jewelries, if we are very sure that we can protect that and keep that in the house and it will not be stolen, and we keep it in our house, okay. And if we keep it in our house, we secure it with proper locks, keys, most kinds of those kinds of things. Safe I have come, Godrej safe has come, which has a lot of security and all. Sometime even one of my friend told that when they used to go for a holiday and they can't take those gold jewelries with them. So what they used to do, in order to safeguard their jewelries, they knew that people who are going to come for theft will look into the safe and find out, like an almirah or cabinet, all these kinds. So they used to keep their jewelry in the garbage box, and they used to keep it on the top. They will just put something and put garbage. So obviously a thief will not look into the garbage to find out. So these kinds of certain things which people do, right? So, but what happens, the people who are very, very conscious nowadays, so most of the people keep it with the bank. They say, oh, no, I can't. Like I keep it in the bank locker. We cannot keep the jewelry with us. There is a high risk of keeping the jewelry. Then you keep the data with somebody where the risk is reduced. Okay. So That is something which you have to, same thing applies with this. So I will take you to this website now, but let us first take a few more kind of a thing, one more thing, and that is injections. The third item, 3 things I will discuss here, but there are 10 top, you can find out yourself. Third item in 2021 OWASP is injection. And here is the thing about computer science. The code can either represent a data. Let me make you understand that. A computer code can either represent a data or an instruction. Injection happens when an application accepts the data as input and process it as an instruction rather than just data. So you have input, process, and output. So the computer need to accept a raw data with an application where it has an instruction. It processes that data, throw that data into the application. The application will have instruction to process that, and then the output comes. But in this case, what happens in injection? The data only itself is taken as instruction. So OWASP says application is vulnerable to attack when hostile data is directly used. So one analogy to make you understand, I'll give you an example because it's difficult to understand. So I took this example. So as I said this, let's see that I want to adopt a dog. Either I can just adopt a dog from somebody who's leaving or I like that, or maybe I may go for an animal rescue. In India, we don't have, but in US and all. So animal rescue people in US, you can adopt the dog from them. But the paperwork that you have to fill out require that when you want to adopt a dog or even a child or any, I'm taking a dog example. So when you want to adopt a dog from a dog orphanage, you have to, in the form, you have to give a name to a dog. So what if you pick a name like sit or stay? Because sit happened to be a very common command that you ask a dog to obey. So when you're training a dog, the first thing you train the dog is say, sit, sit, and the dog sit. And that is an instruction. That's a particular name. So what you do is you don't find any name and you write sit. Right. So what happens? You call the dog, you name the dog sit, and you keep on calling dog sit. And you can, if you say sit, will the dog come to you, take it as a name or take it as an instruction? So when you say sit, come here. Sit, come here. And then you say sit. Is a dog supposed to respond to the word sit as through it is name, though it is his name? Or is it supposed to respond to the word sit as though it is an instruction for what to do? Okay. So injection vulnerability occurs in web application when there is an opportunity for a user to provide some input and the application handle it incorrectly. A bad actor could actually inject some malicious code that ends up being interpreted the data as an instruction by the web app. So thinking about it, web app ask user for input all the times. Whether you are typing a comment into community forum or you're submitting a data into web form, that's the intent way that web is asking you to input certain. For example, when you are actually filling up a form while for registration into certain sites, that time there are certain kinds of input or format of input which is accepted. So if the application is vulnerable to injection, this is one of the threat, then the malicious input could be given by a criminal and which will become an unintended outcome. So one version of the injection is cross-site scripting. It's called cross-site scripting, in which the application does not neutralize user input. This means that the application does not somehow make sure that whether input is provided by the user is actually safe, legitimate, in the format the app want it to be put. The input, that means in a simple language, does it validate the input? Like again, if I go to the rescue dog analogy, which I gave you, the example which I gave you, one way that the fork at the animal rescue might prevent confusing name that sound like a instruction or command is checking the name against the list that include the word which is common instruction for dog, like sit, come, fetch, stay, go, no. And he can tell that don't use this, and he restrict the person who's adopting to take this as a name of the dog. So this could go a long way to preventing a situation where a dog might be named sit and interpreted its name as an instruction. So this is an example I wanted to just tell you to. So to bring it back to the web app, a web app form might ask you for your birthday. Something the web app could do to make sure you are inputting data that is expected in the field. In maybe they may limit it to 6 digits to represent your birth month, 2 to represent the day of the month, 2 to represent your birth year. So total 6, 2 DDMMYY. So if someone types all the letters, okay, and includes special character in the birth field like this, the web app could check, validate it, the input, and determine whether the input formatting is correct or not. And maybe it display a user error message and asking to, or it doesn't accept the input. So instead of further interpreting that data. So this has to be done. Nowadays, this happens. So what happens? Injection attack can also be used against web app that connect to backend database, where all the data input by the user in the form is there in order to carry out the instruction that violate the same thing, the 3 confidentiality. So this database, sometimes what happens, that's database which are frequently coded in the language called SQL. Okay, you can learn SQL, all of you, if you learn SQL, very easy. It is good for you. You should have understanding of many more technology. And a malicious attacker launching, sometime a malicious attacker will launch SQL injection attack, which will be an attempt to create, read, update, delete something they're not supposed to do in the backend SQL database. So they take the advantage of user input field that does not check or validate the input to make sure whether the user input is appropriate, and it trick the software application to take it as an instruction. Okay. And that's where the injection work. Okay. So if you do not, or you're, do not check the input given by in your database, then this SQL injection can be a big problem. Okay. Now, before I go to this, I will just take you to the site and spend some time over there. So just give me a few seconds. So can you all see now? Okay, so this is the so you can see this is OWASP site. It's in Foundation. It's called Open Worldwide Application Security Project. It's a non-profit organization to improve the security of the software. So there are a lot of people who contribute to this. They have a lot of educational and training conferences which happens. So you become a member, you can become a member of this. You can also donate certain articles and certain information to this. The CEO is Mr. Jim Manico. He is the founder of this particular thing, and this is free of cost. So you can see here a lot of things are there here. So if I go to, so you have events where you can see the lot of things which they do it. Just give me a few seconds. Okay, so these are the top 10 OWASP, and these are the top 10 security web application security risk. So these are 3 new categories and 4 Three new categories which are added in 2017 is sensitive data exposure, broken access control, security misconfiguration. All these are, these are the one. You can see this one I have explained you, broken authentication, injections, okay, cross-site scripting. So you can just go to all these kinds. For example, if I go to this cryptographic failure, it will show you the number of incident which has happened, what is the rate of this, and you can read about what is it. I just told you a few things about that. How do you prevent it? So you can classify your data. I just told you don't store your data, all these things in a bit little. And for technological knowledge, if you encrypt all the data protocol like TLS, FS, all these security technology and protocol, strong password, hashtag, all these kinds of scripting, you can read about this. Example attack scenario, one of the scenario and application encrypt credit card number, okay, SQL injections. So you can just go through this. There are a lot of things which are there. It really, for those people who really want to become a cybersecurity professional, should actually go through this website. Okay. So I will be typing this website, in the chat box. Make sure that if you want, because when you go for interview, these are the kinds of things which they ask you, and you can impress them because you know about what is it, because they keep on updating this. Okay, so this is a very good site. So I'll now go back to my slide. Okay. So now go back to my slide and take the second topic now. And we'll look at certain cases, okay? Okay. Let's look into some of the other problem which organization and everybody is talking about, like privacy. So the aspect of this security, privacy, and it's all about how can you keep your data secure or private, okay? And privacy in a purest sense means freedom from or protection of something. So how does that apply in terms of cybersecurity? So privacy as related to cybersecurity is the protection of your information from anybody whom you don't want to see. So the main question around privacy are usually what information of mine is collected and stored. Because you all know that when you are online, whether it is a social networking site, it's your email or anything, even you are protecting it with a password, but there's no privacy. Companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple, every company use your data. They don't use it to harm you, but they use it for marketing purpose. So if you want to know that where is my data collected and stored, how is my data being used by a company, and who has access to my data and are they sharing my data? So we call a term in the cybersecurity which is called the PII, personally identifiable information. PII is information that is directly related to an individual, which may use to identify them. This can be broken into two parts, sensitive and non-sensitive PII. Means there is information about you, your name, your birth date, your address, your phone, and all. So if you break that into two, PII, sensitive and non-sensitive, the non-sensitive PI would be, think of it as information that is easily searchable and accessible to someone, to anyone should, if they are looking for you. So a simple internet search could provide information on an internet. This include, like for example, your LinkedIn profile, whatever you are there. So somebody types your name. So some data which is publicly available, might be you have given access to it, will be available over there. This is not only limited to your name, your birthday, or even your gender. So these are the information which is not worrisome for you, right? If somebody gets your name and somebody knows you're male or female, what harm will they do with that? Okay, your phone number and all will be sensitive data. Okay, so that is the thing which you want. So somebody knows you don't want to there's no privacy issue in that. So non-sensitive PI is easily accessible information and which can be easily searchable and easily accessed. Someone should not be able to access to these information online, and they are able to search this information on and easily find it. Okay. Now, what are sensitive PII? There are certain data which you don't want people to know. For example, maybe you don't want on your social networking site, you will not give your phone number, mobile number. You will not give your any other information which you don't want public to know, or anybody, even your friends to know. Like in certain cases, your personal medical information, it will be stored in certain hospitals record, but it will be accessible only by you through some login credential, or maybe through some code which they might have given you. It will not be made public. Like in US, we have something called social security number, or maybe your password, driving license information, your credit card. So many kinds of informations are there which you don't want, anybody to know. So those kinds of information, so these are non-sensitive PI like name, birthday, and gender, which is, it's okay if somebody finds about it. But sensitive information can be this, right, which I told you. So when you are so these are certain kind of a sensitive data which you want to, perform. So there are many law and regulation which is implemented to help keep companies accounting for protecting this information. So when company is taking your information, where they're asking you to share your mobile number, share your certain medical information like your blood group or any kind of a disease or anything like that in the health app or somewhere, or it may be your passport number, your Aadhaar card number, and all those things. So the law and regulations are there even in India, which expect the company to protect your information on your behalf, which are sensitive in nature, like PII sensitive, which I told you. So the law and regulation will give the individual to take their own privacy and also use a privacy to consider or to make the company consider the PI information sensitive and non-sensitive. So what kind of protection a particular company will provide, extra layer of protection, so that they protect these kinds of sensitive information about a person who has given it to them by trusting them, by providing just an extra layer of protection, maybe anything. So now, sometimes it happens that you think before you, when you want to take a privacy as a personal and you want to take a particular action to make sure that who's getting your information and how they'll be using it. So think before you share your information. Question why that person need your information, right? And removing any social media content that's no longer necessary. Sometimes you may have certain kinds of things. Update your privacy setting in your social media, as well as searching your name regularly. Try to search on Google and find out that what are the things which are accessible by public, right? I will tell you about one case which is there and that law which is applicable in India also after I complete this. And so there is one more thing which I want you to know is that is called CIA, a very basic principle of privacy, which stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And it's a well-known model within a cybersecurity. Confidentiality is the work done to keep the data secure within the company environment about anybody. If the company is taking your data, they should know that what are the data which they should, how they should secure that data and make it not available to the public. Integrity means that which equates to trust. That means the data is reliable and verified. If you're giving certain data to the company, it should be reliable and it should be verified by the company. And finally, the availability means that data should be available to all the authentic user as needed by the guideline, right? So that accessibility to the authorized user should be given, not to the unauthorized. So this framework provide a detailed instruction to the company, allow them to maintain a secure environment and make it mandate to follow with that. So some of the most well-known practices which certain companies are following is GDPR, HIPAA, and PCI. So GDPR is general data protection right. European continent in 2017 onward is following this particular law very, very strictly. Like I will tell you, in Europe, there are certain very big steps taken to create the privacy law. Because sometimes what happens in certain countries, unlike in India, privacy is considered as not very important, the privacy of data online. The India basically give more importance to the financial transaction. And there is a very strict law which says that, okay, financial transaction or the data should be stored physically in the server, which should be located within the geographical area of India. The data should not move out of India. That means if the company has a backend server in some other country, they should not move the financial data, but they can move any other data they can share. So there's no law related to privacy. But in Europe, there are various kinds of rights and law which is given. Like, for example, right to object. Right to object is given to the people where I'm a European citizen, I can object to Google or Amazon or Facebook and ask them, you should not use my data. I should say that whatever data you are storing about me or I'm sharing with you, that should not be used even for marketing purpose. So the company have to follow that. Second is right to inform. That means that if I have a right to ask a company where my data is used. So if I'm asking information to Google or I'm asking to Facebook or Instagram, they should tell me where my data is used, even if they're used for marketing purpose. There are many laws like that. Then there is a law called, law right to be forgotten. It's a very interesting story, which I will tell you. In Germany, there was one person, from a very, very, reputed family. It was a noble family, that means royal family. And by accidentally, he committed a crime, a murder. And he went to serve, his sentence in the prison. And he was there for a few years. While he was there in the, serving his punishment, during that time, his family suffered a lot through media and all. Then it subsided slowly. And they all left and, started living somewhere else. When this person was released, and the media again started following this person and started pursuing his story, his family life became very difficult. For him, already he has served a jail, got punished for what he has done. But there was a brutal punishment in form of media, which was happening. Because we always say media becomes a trial room. They decide who's a culprit. So what happened? This person's life got disturbed again. His family life got disturbed again. And then he filed a case against these companies saying that I don't want my data to be available online. So what happened? That law came into action. Now it is there in India also, because one of the South Indian actors also filed a case because she was trolled a lot online and a lot of fake things were coming. And she said, I want to exercise the right to be forgotten. Right to be forgotten means that your data should not be publicly available in that country. Your data is there in the server, but it will not be visible to the people in that country who are using the location, the IP address, the track. But then people can follow VP, virtual private network, or maybe any other way to access data from other country, right? That's how the right to be forgotten is one of the kind of a law which is practiced in India also, but many people don't know about it. So as a cyber security professional, you should be well versed. If I get a time in this session, I may show you some videos on this. Then HIPAA is also there. So some of the control which is actually exercised is the policy, procedure, standard and guidelines, which is universal. These all are certain universal law. PCI is also there. So access control is described that, as I just now told you, that you've got permission within your organization and outside your organization to, to access the software application or the data. Okay, then the same, there are various kinds of access also given, like physical, logical access and all this. I'm not going to talk much about it. I've already spoken a lot about that. So here, it is very important that a person who is basically handling a cyber security thing, they should know about this. Okay? So general data protection, privacy, for protection regulation, I told about that. Then HIPAA is also there. So HIPAA is a legislation which provides security provision and data privacy related to your medical information. So these are the information which you should know about, that this law is applicable to the medical industry or the hospital industry, where you should secure the medical information about the patient. So this law is dealing with that. Then you have PCI security, which deals with all card and financial transaction decisions. Okay. So in cybersecurity, there are so many things which is done to find out also the flaws in the network. For example, a penetration test is done. These are the cybersecurity professional work. They do the penetration test via network to find a flaws and vulnerability in the control environment, so that they should know, like, if the cyber criminal want to attack, they will find a loophole and try to exploit. So these penetration tests are done by the cybersecurity professionals. The computer, there is one more branch which is called computer forensic. Okay. So this all I have already told you, who are less privileged, and from that first slides, multiple authentication are being used nowadays. So this is one which I wanted to focus on, because this is picking up a huge opportunity for the people who want to make their profile or career in cybersecurity. So computer forensic is picking, it has a huge opportunity. It is like an investigator who are employed to find or examine a copy of targeted system storage media, to look for a hidden folder on unallocated disk space for instances like damaged, deleted, encrypted file. And if investigator find any evidence on the digital copy, it is like an audit, security audit. It is carefully recorded in a document called finding reports. So they also do the same thing which I said, penetration test. Okay. So like, for example, how the car manufacturing company does, before releasing a lot of a car, they basically take a random sampling of a car, and they crash the car with a dummy to find out whether the security things, like all the security things are working or not. Okay. So similarly, these cybersecurity professionals, before putting any kind of a application for public use, they basically do this penetration test to find out the flaws. Those are, and certain time even the audit is done by the forensic department to find out whether there is anything or not. So this is the penetration test I was talking about. The cybersecurity professionals, also called ethical hackers, are called, or they are hired basically to find out the flaws in their system, find out the flaws in their very controlled and protected system. And these people's job is to find the vulnerability and the loopholes. Okay. And then suggest a solution for that. Okay. So VPN, we have spoken about that in the last class. So we are also going to talk about the firewall, that how the firewall basically try to act as a guard or this. So a cybersecurity professional should know about the firewall. Let's look into certain case study. Now I will discuss about some very interesting cases. So let's look into India. So I took this Forbes article which was released in 2022. And it said that about India. So India is going to spend, the government is going to spend around $3 billion in cybersecurity. In 2020, the data breach which has happened in India has cost India an average of $2 million per event. It can be a ransomware attack, malware, DOS, so many things. In 2019, the country has spent nearly $2 billion on cybersecurity. And the India state has the most cybersecurity cases on record than any country. And they have arrested the most of the people for the crime for biggest data breach in 2021. Okay, let's look into some other facts. So average cost of the breaches in India in 2021 was 2 million. Okay, dollar, that too in dollar, not in rupees. And it was highest in US. Maximum number of cyber crime happened in US, which is around 2.64 million. And globally, actually, average if you take, it is 3.86 and India is 2 million. So that's the kind of thing. So this is from a report which was released by IBM Security. And if you see the biggest, the breaches in India in 2021, these were Domino's, where 180 million orders detail were hacked and stolen. MobiWik wallet, 110 million users details were all stolen and hacked and changed username and passwords. Just Pay 100 million users account were hacked. Air India, 4.5 million passengers details were stolen. Okay. Karnataka, if you see the most cyber criminal state, you will see the most arrested. So Uttar Pradesh is highest in number in terms of arresting the cyber criminal. Karnataka lead with the highest number of reported cybercrime in India, maybe because of it is an IT city. Okay. So the most common method, which is seen of data breach in 2019 is 45% goes for hacking. 22% error by the company. I told about some of the error like injections or scripting, cross-scripting and all. Some social engineering attack. 17% contribute to malware, misuse or unauthorized access, which I said, broken access control, and the physical action also. The physical security also deals with that. So according to the Forbes, the organizations have paid 51% of the time the ransomware because of the ransomware. So 51% of the time, the organization which was attacked by the ransomware had been forced to give the money in ransom to the people, and those people are not caught anytime. So these are the success rate of that ransomware attack. How much India actually spent on cybersecurity in 2019? It was 2 billion. And how much it is likely to spend in this, which will be 1 billion more than 2019. So 3 billion they are going to spend on this cybersecurity thing. That means there's a lot of things. Let's look into some of the cases, which is sometimes something happens, students, that some few things where the law become very weak. And these cyber criminal people, the syndicate of the group of the people, they don't have any particular geographical area. They can work from anywhere. They can use any kind of a dark web technology, or maybe Tor, or maybe anything, a VPN, and they can do that. So what happens, this is the cyber criminal people actually study the law and regulation so nicely that they understand that every country has a different kinds of rules and regulation. And like India is the weakest, and every country, there is a loophole in that IT security, like IT Act 2000 in India. There's a lot of loopholes in that. There's a lot of flaws in that. And they try to exploit that. So it becomes legal. Sometimes it is legal, but it is unethical. You say, how can it happen? Like pornography. A lot of debate goes on. So the government said, India government said that, okay, we can't ban pornography like in Saudi Arabia and other countries, but we can do what? Certain things is banned and illegal, like child pornography. People who are watching also, for initially it was defined that people who are uploading the content are criminal, but now they define that even people who are watching the child pornography, if you track it and found it, they are also criminal. So this is how the law keep on refining itself after they find out the number of cases which is rising. Let's look into one case. So this is a case which I always discuss. This is a legal app. It is still existing, not in India, okay? So don't try to get it in India. So girls around me. So there's a social networking site called Foursquare, okay? This is particular app which was launched in Europe, okay? I think it was in Hungary. And basically, it's a mobile app which try to determine your location. So what it does, it will scan when, for example, if you are, and it works in with a Foursquare, social media site, which is very popular in Europe, just like Facebook and Instagram. So what happens, if obviously the girls around me, what it does is, suppose if you have an app and in a particular area, it will scan for women in that area who have recently checked in into Foursquare and updated their status and location. You know, every app can be, whenever you download an app or use, it will ask you and give you a disclaimer that do you want to allow this app to access your location? So you will say allow once. Then there will be an option that allow always when to use this app. So there are these things which happens, right? So what it does, it try to, once you edit, it will try to locate all the women who are using the social media site Foursquare and checked into the Foursquare and does not have any privacy setting. So if you are suppose in a particular area and you are searching for some women, those women who are checked into in that area and checked in that, hey, I am in the restaurant having this. So those locations and those women name and their profile is shared with you. And it will tell you where is that woman. So once you identify the woman, and in that it will show you like this, okay? The profile of all the women. And when you identify and you say, okay, fine, I want to talk to this woman. This woman is not in your friend list. This woman is some stranger. But as a boy, you want to talk. So what happens? You can snoop on her. You can connect to her also through Facebook. If her privacy setting is not done, you can see her full name, profile, photo, and send her a message. So when obviously these are done by the boys, so boys will download this. Once you sign up for this Girls Around Me application, you are again asked to log into this with a Facebook or maybe Foursquare app. Okay. And after connecting to the Facebook, the app asks for everything, requiring people to share their basic information, profile information, photo, just like any other social networking site. And so what happens? It is just like app should be named as Let's Stalk Woman app. It's like stalking women. And imagine a woman, it's so scary. A girl get a message from a strange boy. Hey, I am also in this location. Would you like to meet me? Or I would like to be friendly with you, or anything like that. So it is the biggest breach in the privacy of any woman. And it's like stalking, but this is not illegal. It is unethical, but not illegal. So Mr. Stark of Foursquare said that it is a choice of a person or even a woman to make their information available publicly. So it's a fault of a woman whether she wanted to keep it private so that nobody can see it, or she wanted to do it. So this app was first discovered by a blog which is called Cult of Mac. Okay. And is built by a company called SMS Services OO. This is basically a company based in Russia, and they launched this app in Europe also. And after this was done, and when this was reported into that particular blog, many people started talking about it, media started talking about it. But because it is unethical, but it is not illegal, so you can't do anything. The government can't say, no, why do you have an app like that? And there was no incident reported by any woman about that particular app that there was a crime happened because of that. Right. So also the Foursquare, they were also trying to get the data from, now what this app was doing, they are basically through API, right? You all know about what is application program interface. One particular app interface with the other app, and can, if it is an open API about certain features of that app, it can extract the information. Like for example, Ola, Uber uses the open API of Google Map and access the Google Map location information on there. So similarly, the Foursquare and any of these social media companies like Facebook, they also use API, but there are certain policies which the company defined about API. Like for example, Google few years back has Google Play Store has have removed the Paytm app, saying that Paytm is promoting some online gambling. And later on, they brought it back because Paytm said that this online gambling game is not illegal in India. But Google Play Store had a policy. They said we have a policy that we don't allow or we don't promote online gaming or online gambling. So the company, Foursquare company, when they were contacted and they said that your data has been accessible by the app. So what is your API? The spokesperson said that it's a violation of our API policy. And we have reached out to the developer and we have also closed the API. But by that, harm was also done. Apple have also removed this application from iTunes App Store. This can be personally done and privately done by the companies when they found that, okay, so they didn't allow the iPhone user to download. But legally it is allowed, so there will be no law or no kind of a suit or crime which will be filed against these people. So this is one case. Let's look into, this is one of the biggest case. I don't know whether maybe some of you might have heard about it, but if you've not heard, you should know about it. So Cambridge Analytica case. Still the case is going on Facebook on this. So Cambridge Analytica is a political firm-based firm. You know, they are the consultant, all political party consult them. Even it is said that BJP also consult, but I'm not very sure. Don't quote me anywhere. So they are the politically concerned firm, which is based in UK, right? And they also have offices in Washington, New York. So according to their website, the Cambridge Analytica actually collects and connect data for their consultant client, who can be a political party, and provide them with a kind of a estimation whether the party can win the election in that particular campaign with what campaign. So on social media network, these political party are suggested by Cambridge Analytica to run certain campaign, and with that particular campaign in response, they can tell, they analyze, they use the analytical software and to predict whether these particular company have a chance to win the election or not, and how they can influence the voters to favor this particular outcome. So this is, they gather information from social media. They use a technique of data mining, data brokerage, data scraping, data analysis. So data mining means finding the data brokerage means selling the data, right? That is the business of this company. So these guys are scheming for their clients. So they use a lot of information they collect to influence also the electoral process, the election campaign process, which is unethical, but it is legal. There's no way you can say, again, I'm telling you, a very slight difference. People say, oh, yeah, they should not do. But legally, they are correct. So they are safe, right? So Cambridge Analytica was accused of manipulating the US election when Donald Trump has won the election. They said that Donald Trump was one of the client of Cambridge Analytica, and he has influenced the social media, especially the millions account holder of the Facebook, to manipulated them to, win that election. So that was a Cambridge Analytica scandal, very big one. So what has happened that in this particular scandal with Facebook, now Facebook is in question, FBI is asking, the case is still going on. What they did, they gathered personal information from 50 million Facebook profile, and this 50 million Facebook profile, what they did was, they ran a particular kind of a campaign where they were quizzing the Facebook account holder about something. Like, for example, there are a lot of campaign which happens on the news channels where they ask you vote for this and do. You voted from that is legal. Similarly, the Cambridge Analytica have an authorization given through the open API of Facebook to access the profile, certain profile, like I told you, sensitive and non-sensitive PII. So apply that particular thing. So Facebook also uses those kind of a categorization, which are the sensitive PII and non-sensitive PII of the account holder. So what they did a data scrapping. They were allowed to run a campaign on the social media site through API. But what they did was using a technology, they scrapped the data and got all the sensitive PII of the people, especially the social security number of these people, and targeted the US voters with political advertisement. So now, if you see in the Facebook or any of the social networking site, if you want to talk about any, or if you want to do the campaign on the social media side on political, they don't allow you. So they have those kinds of technology to analyze your post and to verify you. Okay. So with so this was by creating that particular thing, they did that. They found out the information about all the account holder, their detail, where they stay, how many family members are there, and accordingly, but through the Facebook API, actually they were supposed to run a quiz to ask certain question, and Facebook API has allowed to do that. The Facebook didn't allow them to scrap the sensitive PII information from this, which they did it. They're like stealing that information. So Facebook user filled out those questionnaires when that particular quiz was run by Cambridge Analytica company for Donald Trump at that time. And they would have to collect a certain non-sensitive information like your weight, what is your birth date, what is your gender, what is your name. That much only information they were allowed. The non-sensitive PI information from the Facebook. And the Facebook allowed this app, to do this campaign by asking certain quiz with a non-sensitive PIA information. But what they exploited the system. They found the loophole into the Facebook database, and they scrapped the sensitive PII information also, and they breached the trust. Now Facebook is unable to make the FBI understand that how it is not able to provide a very good and strong protection to the consumers' data who have trusted them, and how Facebook has also, in a way, attempted to favor the election in some political party. So this is one case which is very, very, you people all should know about it. You can read much in detail about this. There's a lot of things which is happening. A lot of people did a virtual mask pass, did test again Facebook during that time in US, and they said that our privacy, when people, there's one more side of it. One side is that they try to influence the voter. The other side is the when the people knew about this case and the media started talking about it, everybody, the US citizens became very, very wild. They came out on the road and protested, and they said that we trust a company like Facebook and we provide our information. How can the in Facebook be so careless, or how can be those so weak that they can't protect our data from being stolen? So that was a kind of a thing which Facebook has to face. Now, let us also look into one of the report. And this is a report where 1,004 security practitioners who worked in 278 organizations across the world, where there was one survey done, were interviewed recording the impact of insider threat. So I'm going to talk now about the threat from your employees, a threat from the people who have access to, and then I will do a case study, which is again a very popular case study. So 278 organizations said that almost all of them had an event which was caused by the insiders. Insider job. There was a movie also on that. So there was a total of 6,803 insider incident evaluated. Out of that, 56 were related to negligence. Maybe the employee may not have done deliberately, intentionally. Like I just told you about the broken control access. Maybe, HR people, some report, accidentally it is kept, and that confidential report may get accessed by somebody else. So that is one thing. 26% because of the criminal or malicious insiders. Some people who join the organization with that intent, they steal the data, they sell the data to the competitors. And then the 13% resulted from credential theft by the employee itself. They steal and they sell this. Okay. So the report also indicated that companies are spending about, average of 85 days to identify these insider security incident, the theft of these sensitive data, because it is very, very difficult to find out somebody who's doing from in-house. So for many organizations, their trade secrets are their crown jewels, right? That are potentially from decade of development. Like, for example, certain particular restaurant will be known for a certain particular recipe, and people proud over there and try, and they don't share the recipe with anybody. So that is their trade secrets. So similarly, all organizations have their trade secret. Like, for example, new product launch, their R&D, research and development efforts. If the competitors would like to find out what is the R&D efforts of the other company, when are they launching the new product, what are the feature, like for example, Alexa, the smart speaker, when it was about to launch, at that time, Apple and Google also, Google Home, Apple Pod, all were ready. They were also doing the same thing. Similar thing happened with the driverless car. Apple was also making the driverless car at the same time. Google launched. They found out that Apple is not ready yet. Or when are they going to launch? So people launch it first to gain the competitive advantage. This is unethical, but not everything is fair in business. So the data is targeted for the criminal or malicious insiders who will try to sell this data to the competitors, or maybe sometime to the government, the foreign government, like in defense. Okay. They may also sometimes the certain kind of employee will induce a deliberate downtime for a server. It won't work. So it will harm the customers. Will have, the time is money, for every company. So if you're, for example, let's say a digital e-commerce company, let's say for 10 minutes, if there is a downtime and you are trying to book, let's say it's flight ticket through an e-commerce site, will you stay there? You will not, like, because we are living in a now economy. Everybody is in a hurry. Everybody wants to do everything fast. So if you have to wait for some time, and if there's a downtime, nobody will wait. So this is very, very important, that the no connection when it happens, and when you see, you lose customers. Sometimes one more kind of a thing which happens is the data destruction. Destruction of your data, which is also asset, a very crucial assets. So while destruction of the physical property, you can still, somehow manage it. But what about the destruction of sensitive data? And what is the extent of the destruction of this data, which can result in loss to the, imagine a bank losing all the data, and it is done deliberately by an employee. This may also cause a damage to your reputation. The company will spend a significant amount of resource, time and money to build and protect their brand. But within a minute, a malicious insider attack can cause investor and client to lose their trust on that organization, because they feel that if an organization is not able to protect their own information, then how can they protect their information? Okay. So many incidents are there. I will take one case here. I don't know how many of you heard about Edward Snowden case. Okay. It's a very interesting case. I really like this. There's a lot of documentary and movie made on this. You can go ahead and watch that on the internet or on YouTube. So Edward Snowden, the case is called, is it a whistleblower? No, it's a whistleblower. Whistleblower is unethical, but in certain countries, not illegal. Okay. So this happened in 2013. So Edward Snowden is a person who worked in NSA. Okay. Worked in NSA. NSA is National Securities Agency, surveillance agency in US. The people also call them big brother watching you. Okay. They are the people who basically snoop on everyone. Okay. Snooping means what they do is they not only, just a minute. Okay, just a minute. So what happens is that the so the NSA used to snoop around everybody. It was said that they will become after that twin tower attack in 9/11 attack, 2011. At that time, the US became very strict. So NSA started storing the data and spying on everybody who was in US. So cameras with special facial recognition software was installed. A lot of movies are based on that. Then they started bugging all the computers, even the electronic devices. They didn't even leave the small kids going to the school. So everybody who's staying in the US, they were spied by their government. This was for a security purpose. Anything suspicious, they would just go, and it was so bad that they will, without telling the person, they will torture that person. Edward Snowden was one of the employee of the company, who was a contractor of NSA, and that company is called Booz Allen Hamilton. And he was an engineer, software engineer, and he was working with that particular company, and he was assigned, the company was given a contract by NSA to secure and store the data in the server of AT&T. AT&T is a telecom company in US. So Snowden was working there for last 4 years, in 2011, before that. And he was placed there. And he actually, during those time, 4 years, found that what NSA is doing. The NSA is recording and collecting the data regarding there, and they're invading into the privacy of the US citizens. They're spying on their own people. Maybe the purpose is for security, national security. So he found it very unethical. What he did, he had an access to the data, right? He was authorized to have access because he was dealing with the storage part of the data. So he took all the data in a device, carried with him, okay? And now he wanted to tell the people that how NSA is invading into your privacy. But how can he do? Because if you stay back in US and tell that through certain channels or newspaper or any media, he will be killed because he's taking a problem with the government directly. So he fled to Hong Kong, and through there, one in a newspaper of this, he talked about what NSA is doing. Now, no newspaper will just, if you go and tell about somebody or some big government, especially the US, which is a very powerful government, about them, they will believe you. You need to provide certain data, just like WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. He's also in the asylum in UK because he also has access to certain kind of not very sensitive, confidential government data, which he released on his site. So he released this information while fled to the Hong Kong, and from there, in one of the papers, he released with all information. And after that, he started giving interviews from there and talking about that how US are doing very unethical job of spying on kids and everybody, and they are invading the privacy of their own. The privacy is a fundamental right of this US citizens, which they are violating. He started talking about that. So in US, there were a lot of protests against this. There were a lot of people who came on the street, protested against the government and said that Edward Snowden is our hero. What he did is correct. Bring him back. And the US government is doing wrong with us. They are spying on us. We cannot have a privacy in our own home. Our phone calls are recorded every day. So there's a huge protest. But the government tried to gave a lot of statements saying that, no, we are doing all these things. We're not harming, we are not spying on you. This all information is for your own security, so that this happened, that happened. But then people started doing that. Now there are two perspectives from this. One perspective when this case study is done is from the organization point of view, and one is from the uh, ethical point of view. Organization perspective, Edward Snowden is wrong because he breached the trust of the organization. He worked for NSA as an insider, as an employee, even if we know certain trade secret. Always all kind of a business will have some black secret. But the employee, even if they know, they're not supposed to talk about that. He went ahead and spoke. So he breached the trust of the employee, which he should not have been done. From the other perspective, if you see, he said, I have not done this for any financial gain. He's not sold that data to anybody, not to any country or anybody. He just wanted to, he felt that it is wrong. It is unethical what government is doing. That's why he wanted to tell the citizen. So this was no bad intention from his side. From that perspective, if you see. So there are two perspectives to this. So this is how I wanted to give you an example of the insider thing. Now let us look into some more concept before I end. Okay. So a lot of companies are implementing a lot of control to protect against insiders, outsiders who are bad guys, maybe insider or outsiders. They also want to stay a step ahead of these criminal. So let's dive a bit more into the method of cyber criminal, how they basically gain unwarranted access. So first up is something called APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, which is, Kaspersky, which is the antivirus company. APT uses a continuous, sophisticated hacking technique to gain access to a system and remain inside the system for a long period of time. And they don't do harm. They gain trust of the system for some time. Like an employee join a company with a bad intention, he gain all the trust of everybody. When everybody start trusting, he immediately attack. So same thing happens with APT. So they move into system, remain in the system, gain the trust, and then they suddenly have a potential to destroy in any way. So these are basically, this may be access a network. And as I said, it will lay dormant till it strike. Okay. It may be there in the network for a month and even for a year. And it will remain undetected because the cybersecurity professionals also will sometimes say, okay, this doesn't look very harmful. Oh, so this is a patch, this is a code which is not harmful. So it is just like in your home, you have a termite, which slowly eat up your house. Not in one day, it will eat up. So you assume your house was built from this particular safe. You will use all kinds of, pesticides to remove this termite, but still it happens because there will be some termite which will not harm, which will remain unnoticed. So similarly, these kinds of APTs are like that. So that term you should know. Now let's talk about little bit about ethical hacking before we wind up this session. So ethical hacking is becoming a very, very big name nowadays. And ethical hacking hackers there are a lot of celebrity ethical hacker. You can see Ankit Fadia was a celebrity ethical hacker from the age of, I think, when he was 12 years old, he started doing this job. Your Mark Zuckerberg is also a hacker. So all these people are ethical hackers. That means white hat. They're the people whose intentions are not bad. They are used by the companies, by the organization, by FBI, by CBI to find information by hacking or stealing information. So they're doing it for the benefit of the organization, benefit of the nation and these. So ethical hacking help the system administration to understand how to protect the asset they manage. So the company hire ethical hackers to intrude into their system. If they can do it, then there is a loophole. Okay. So ethical hacking, if you want to understand this particular thing, so let me just go ahead. So what happens, the test and the procedures which are executed on your own system by an outsider as an hacker in order to protect your system is ethical. So this is what I wanted to tell you. It can be investigating an individual database, a website, a server, or maybe conducting an illegal activity, but for with your permission to analyze that. So that is an ethical hacking. Okay. So the word hacker was first actually used in MIT in 1960. During that time, a group of computer scientist students were working on artificial intelligence. And most likely, these talented young individuals or students were asked to hack at a problem until they had a solution. So they were asked to hack with not good intentions. So, however, as the time has passed in MIT while they were doing this project, and they were called as hackers. Now, normally, whenever we talk about hacker, it has a negative thinking. Many people think that hacker are someone who is trying to break into your system to steal your information or maybe to release some malware. But these group of hackers, the ethical hackers, have different attitude and different goals. Okay. Now, as I said, that they have different attitude and different goals. So the three main type of hackers are black hat, gray hat, and white hat hackers. Black hat hackers are the bad people who have bad intention. They are the people who want to crack the code, crack a password. Black hat has an objective to cause harm by doing some criminal activities. Okay. They might be sometime backed by an organized syndicate of crime, or maybe a nation state also like North Korea or China sometimes is noted. Black hat operate on dark side of the internet. Okay. Damaging the organization, doing some crime. They may also be used for threatening the government with cyber terrorism. That is also a word which is nowadays picking up a lot. They may cripple a financial system like bank or something. Whereas the white hat hackers, so they're the people who basically try to take the advantage of your security loopholes or weaknesses and the vulnerability. Okay. They know that the security and they find out the loophole and they try to crack it. So when we talk about the white hat hackers who are ethical hackers, they have a support of the government. They are hired by the government, by the industry. They're also computer experts. So they are a contract employee. Most of them are freelancers. They are hired by these company. Sometimes the security company also hire some employees, train them to test a system, to attempt to break into a system, to be a part of their internal team. Sometimes they be maybe the employee. They conduct regular penetration test, which I was telling you a long time back. Okay. Ethical hackers should also have certain kind of personality characteristic, like they should have a skill of doing that. They should have patience, good code of conduct. Otherwise, they may also turn into black hat hackers. So these are certain terms which you people should know. There is another term which we also called the gray hat hackers. Those are sometimes they have intentions of doing something, but they do something else also on their own. So this is a method which I wanted you people to know, the penetration test methodology. All the cybersecurity professionals should know that once an organization decide that they were going to hire an ethical hacker, and the ethical hacker will do the penetration test or pen test, basically to determine the uh, security audit, or maybe you can say that they might be the external people who have come for doing the security audit of your thing. So the goal is basically to assess the security system of your. So ethical hackers will try to find out the way your system can be breached. So in early days of networking, the parameter scanning for test and the system ability to withstand a particular attack uh, through a boundary firewall, which was provided as a security, was tested. But today, the network edge has very blurred. Security threat has expanding beyond the meaning of what used to exist initially. So different type of testing is conducted in order to test the security of a particular company. which can also include network security test. Okay. And this can also include email server test, web interface, host, wireless application, database. So the total assessment when the company is doing these kinds of security audit or security test or penetration test, it may take some time, like 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the number of target. So penetration test or ethical hacking exercise can answer many security doubts what you have about your questions. It will also tell the company how vulnerable is your company system or your application from any target. Is there any social engineering technique which is effective in your group? What are the exploitable vulnerability in your system? Are anti-malware signature which you are using are up to date? Or the operating system patches is current or not, which you're using as a platform? Or is there any unnecessary services running? Okay. So penetration test basically try to monitor for the threat from outside. And also sometimes it can identify the test from inside. The inside attack occurs, as I told you already, when somebody from the inside who have access to the network breaches the system. Okay. So because insider attack normally are the trusted people who can have a very good knowledge about your network architect. And these insider attack are more dangerous and costly. So need for penetration test has come actually by law now, by directive. So in 2002, the Federal Information Security Management Act, they created a guideline for US agency to create and implement these kinds of penetration tests on their system and data. So many organizations are doing this because these are very expensive tests, especially the organization which are dealing with payment card. They have to, or health insurance companies, or any kind of data which are very, very sensitive in nature. So these companies need to do this kinds of test. Okay. I'm just going to avoid this now because I'm going toward the end. I will talk about this I will talk about later about dark web. Okay. So I'm just going to go to the last slide where I will tell that dark web, I will take it in the next session. So what are the enabling technology students you should know as a cybersecurity professional? So if you want to get into the field of cybersecurity, you need to have a very good understanding and strong understanding of certain technology, like IP networking, firewall, cryptography. These are the 3 fundamental technology you should know as a cybersecurity professional. These technologies are foundational. You can use them throughout your cybersecurity career. So let us have a little bit, briefing about that. So when you talk about IP networking as a cybersecurity professional, you'll be working with internet protocol, the other network communication protocol on the regular basis. So you need to understand IP networking because many security attacks are based on its flaws, and knowledge of few IP networking concepts is critical. Okay. And you should understand how IP diagram are constructed with headers and payloads. These are certain things which your trainers will teach you, and what encapsulation is. All cyber security professional also should know about the IP addresses, how it works, the subnets. They should understand how IP routing work to transport data packet across the network boundary using routers, how it relate to the 7-layer of OSI models. Should know about that. There are also many common protocol on the internet suites which you need to know. All these protocol you should know about it. You should be well versed with these protocol. Okay. And each of this I will be sending to Harinakshi ma'am one reading file which has detail of this, which whatever session I have taken, little bit elaborative way. It has detail of that. You can go through that if you want. She can share it with the center and center can share it with the students. So you have expected as a cybersecurity professional to understand the common attack which exploit IP network. Okay. And these flaws can be, in the form of eavesdropping, IP address spoofing, denial of service attack, sniffer attack, man in middle, M&M attack. And the next technology you should know is related to the first one, which is firewall. I've been talking about firewall. So firewall is used to protect the, uh, you know, like a security guard, your network. Okay. So it basically watches the traffic, the inflow and the outgoing traffic. So it is a very important technology for cybersecurity professional to understand. You need to know about different kind of firewalls, like application, state firewall, okay, proxy firewall, just all those kinds of things, okay. And uh, normally about the firewall rule sets, packet filtering firewall work, application layer firewall, how network address translation and private address range. So all these, because the firewall is again the target for attackers, and the common firewalls which are basically using is the third technology. I'm just going to finish it fast. So third common technology which all security professionals, cybersecurity professionals should know is cryptography. This is the encrypting data. So you should have a strong understanding of how encryption works. You should know the common cryptographic algorithm like AES, Diffie-Hellman. Some names are given. RSA is very common. ECC. Difference between secret key and public key cryptography. Common cryptographic concept like digital certificate authority, certifying authority, hash function, salt, key length, symmetric and asymmetric cryptography. Steganography. I talked about that. You remember the king messenger story I told, how terrorists use this. Security technology. So cryptography is a very, very common technology. And basically, when we talk about cryptography, it also talk about a lot of things like brute force attack, rainbow tablet, birthday attack, cryptographic weakness attack, side channel attack. So you all should be familiar with all these kinds of technology. Okay. So I'm going to end it here. And if there is any question, and all these rest of the things which I could not cover, I will cover the dark web. But before that, I want to know if you want the cybersecurity session only to go on for the next, or you want some other, except from ERP, because I'm a little weak in that. I have idea how to work with that, but to make you understand the technology and also, I'm not the right person to do that. So I have to be your director about that. I will not be able to teach you about SAP. So you can tell me any other, whatever you are taking, what should be the next session?
No, madam, SAP ERP will be done by Sabyasachi. I have spoken to them. And Swamijit, you can continue in your strength area, madam. No problem. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions, students? And also write down that if you have, I will be passing the certain exercises file. Those are reading files, certain links are there. So cybersecurity students can go through. Very important, very nice learning, right? Because see, we have a lot of access to the information, but we don't know which is the right one for us. So these kinds of guidance and these kinds of little bit of information may help you to um, understand that what are the right content you have to read or you have to study. Okay, anything? So what will be my question now? I want quickly everybody to write down what should be the next session on. So please go ahead and write. I'm waiting. Yeah. Dark web. Okay. It's a very interesting topic. Actually, I also want to know. Neuralink. See, Neuralink is then again AI. So you have to tell me related topics. I can talk about dark web. Dark web. Okay, fine. So, baby, we decided now, students, most of you want dark web. I have a lot of content on dark web. We will also understand how does it work. Again, unethical, ethical things will come. And whenever it comes like dark web, everybody thinks, oh, criminal people. It's not all about criminal who are working in this space. There are a lot of organizations, journalists, defense, and government. They also work in dark web. Okay.
Ma'am.
Okay. And whatever I have shown you, the last slide was very important. Those three technology, the IP address, the network, the cryptography, and the other one, the protocol, please learn that, okay? Learn those technology, because even the firewall, learn about that. If you want to become a full-fledged cybersecurity, information about what is a threat, so that site which I have given you in the chat, go through that continuously, find out what are the things, because it's a very good site. Second is about what are the security solutions which are available. And if you build your base on those three technology, the IP protocol and the firewall and cryptography, most of the things are sorted out. See, cybersecurity professionals need to keep themselves updated about the threat and then develop because your work is to find out the solution. Okay. Penetration test, I said, try to find out how to do a penetration. Try to do the penetration test on some site and find out who are allowing you. I'm not saying don't just go ahead and try to do a penetration test on secure or some company site. But your own company side, you can do that and try to find out. Try to see what is a vulnerability in your security system or your database or your network. Okay. So it is decided we are going to do it in the dark web next week. Okay.
Ma'am, what about robotics? You're taking it in this sessions and all?
No, see, they want it. I have a
No,
session
you
on
continue whatever they want. But ma'am, will it be covered in the 4-month period?
yes, robotic
Oh.
process automation.
Yeah,
I will
robotic
cover.
process automation. Yeah.
I will
Thank you.
cover also a session on OpenAI and
Yeah.
which is GPT, which is
Because last time your session was really very highly appreciated when it was RPA. So from that angle, I was telling that
So
it's okay, ma'am. Please carry
I
on.
will do that, but now at present, one topic on dark web is left.
Sure,
So-
ma'am. Sure. Please follow whatever the students want. No problem.
Later on, maybe after that particular session, we can go ahead and we can go to the the session of robotic process automation, RPA.
RPA. Right, ma'am. Right.
Okay, bye. All of you have a nice
Thank you,
weekend.
ma'am.